Trek. My name is Sarah. It is February 8th. This is Fibercast 29. And Fern, I'm always upstaged by somebody. As usual, I'm in the same spot, which is right by the draft. And so Fern is right here. And Coey is right here. And I think Belle's sleeping in the kitchen. Those are my three dogs. But welcome to new and returning viewers. I'm so glad you've taken some time to tune into the program. I also wanted to thank people for reaching out and connecting with me via Instagram or on Rav, or connecting with each other via the Rav thread. And I was going strong and keeping up with my responses until the week hit, and I've just been able to catch up with just Sunday. So sometimes there are lulls, but I really do try to respond to every comment that's made in all the threads. So if you don't get something from me immediately, it will come. I think Paula at Knitting Pipeline talked a little bit about this in her last episode. I noticed that I missed an email from Emma Ma, I think, regarding some yarn and patterns, and I had come to my Gmail, the Fibertrek at Gmail account, and I missed it. I didn't respond, and I just got back to her, and I was feeling badly about it. And so, but Paula was talking about this, and she kind of assuaged some of that guilt, that response guilt. It is compelling. We want to reach out. We want to acknowledge the time that you've put in contacting us. And so when they get buried or you just lose track of where you are, it can be daunting. But, you know, I did respond. It's been a couple weeks. And so if you don't hear from me right away, either, as Paula said, email me again and remind me, or, you know, post again. It's certainly only the fault of myself and nothing personal, just trying to keep up with all of the bits and pieces. So we had quite a few introductions on the thread. We had Minty from Finland, and we had Victorian Studios from Manitoba, Canada, and Bed of Roses from Norway. And it was really psyched to see the breadth of geography covered there. Minty is just acquiring her first drop spindle, which will be exciting, and I commented that there's even more enabling and fiber abound now once you kind of broaden out the possibility of your craft. She also talked about Kinder eggs, because she was commenting how she had never heard of Cadbury eggs, and I've had Kinder eggs. They're actually illegal in the United States. I think because of the toy inside, it's considered a choking hazard. So she was talking about, you know, how much she loves Kinder eggs, and that she's never, like I said, had Cadbury, and they look really good. So, and they are. Some of you got a little bit worried for me, I think, on my Instagram post. I had made my self-imposed ban on Cadbury eggs for my sugar detox. It didn't last very long. I skied pretty hard yesterday, and then I went to the grocery store, and I was like, Cadbury eggs! I only bought 4, and then I ate one. So they are completely available in the United States, and I'm sure they plan to be available in the United States. But for me, I was like trying to impose some self-restraint, and it did not work. Victorian Studio from Manitoba, she's in Winnipeg, and I have actually been to Winnipeg. I was headed to Churchill, Manitoba, which is right on Hudson Bay. It has a inland, not an inland, but I guess it would be a non-ice population of polar bears, which I didn't know about when I signed up for this expedition, and then realized it when I got their literature. I was going up because I wanted to touch Hudson Bay. I wanted to really experience Northern Lights, and I had seen Northern Lights, and I've been in northern Minnesota and southern Canada and Quantico, and you can see the Northern Lights here, but I was really attracted to the north and north exploration, and this was about as good as it was going to get by myself. And so I went up there and I had a grand time, but I came in on the train into Winnipeg, and I flew into Winnipeg. So she had a really sweet little link to a blog post she did about wildlife in her area, and I would recommend you going to see that. It's right in the introduction thread. Bed of Roses introduced herself from Norway. Her ultimate fiber trek is to Faroe, the Faroe Islands, which I couldn't agree more. The pictures I see of that place are just absolutely wild and stunning, and man, there's something more attractive to me than open, windswept cliffs and snow and sheep and damp. I mean, that says it all about me and my travel destinations. So she shared a link from an H&M commercial, which I believe H&M, I don't know if we have them in the States, but they're, I think, a clothing company. And they did a life fashion knitting story about Pharaoh. And there's a link in the introduction thread. And I went ahead and watched it. And it was great. It was fabulous. There's, you know, obviously pictures of landscape, knitting culture, knitting groups, yarn. So go take a look at that. It's right in the introduction thread. We also had Heather 01851 open up a farm yarn thread in our group for sharing discoveries, kind of an armchair fiber trek as she puts it. And we've been posting a little bit of our Soulful stash. That's what I call farm yarn. It's kind of yarn that comes with a story. It has a soul. It's been, you know, it's easier to access that story than per se one that some of the more commercially driven yarns. So I've decided, if you would like, to post those farm yarns, those special yarns or yarns that really speak to you on Instagram or other such places. We have the Soulful Stash hashtag. So thank you so much, Heather, for opening up that thread. I also heard from a viewer, and I thought I would share with you her message to me. Is this, I haven't even told you what the agenda is for today. I just kind of launched into my tirade of administrati, as the Stockinette zombies might say. I do have whips. I have no FOs. I have no spinning. I know, my Faye knitting went out the window when school started. Ooh. So I heard from Auntie, very close to Swensteve. She says, I would love to hear you talk about or start a thread in the group about slow knitting. Is it just me, or do people seem very driven in their knitting these last few years to do things faster? I'm a quilter and I have noticed the same trend in that craft too. I want to enjoy my knitting and make quality garments. I have to watch myself not to just make the next in pattern, but to think about what I need to make or what I have really wanted to make for a while. I live in a cold climate and need good amount of hats, scarves, mittens, and sweaters. The other question I have is about socks. I've made dozens of pair, but I'm having a hard time finding anything other than merino, especially superwash merino for socks. I don't care for superwash, and I'm even more cautious about it after reading the article you recommended. What I'm looking for is a natural, good, strong sock wool. I enjoy hand washing my wools and love seeing them on their blockers drying. I'm hoping you or someone in the group can recommend a good yarn. And I'm not concerned with it being soft. I'm looking for durability. Thanks so much. Auntie. So those are great questions. I really considered the concept of slow knitting, and I'll put a thread up in the group for people who would like to comment on this. And I know, because I think this is a little bit of a commentary on my Faye knitting, like I was getting all this finished object going. And I was thinking about that process versus product. And I'm not really sure. I think I'm driven by my medium. So it's not about process, it's not about product, it's about the medium of what I'm working with. And so I love working with specific wools. So like right now, I'm working with a Shetland woolen spun, and I'm working with a light fingering yak merino silk. And I'm thinking about working with X, right? So I see a yarn, I want to work with that, I want to feel it. Those different textures reflect a different mood. So I'm not always sure that it's about getting something, or if it's about managing that tactile persona of myself in the knitting. I'm pretty monogamous. Excuse me. Ooh, I just pierced my bag. I'm pretty monogamous with my knitting. I usually pick a project and I go with it. But I pick my projects based on the yarn that I want to work with. Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's so much that I'm driven by fashion or a pattern, but of course you can comment on this. And I don't know if anxiety is the right word, but what I feel when I'm working on it and that compulsion to get it finished is driven by my interest in working with another yarn or more yarns or expanding my experience to include, X. So I think if it was more about process for me, perhaps I wouldn't be as driven. I don't know, I'm kind of mumbling off the top of my head, but this was just kind of what I thought about when that concept of slow knitting came up. If you have any comments, please feel free to throw them in the discussion. We can bring this back into the podcast and see where people go with it. I don't know, I may be completely off my rocker with what I've said, and some people are amazingly fast knitters, and it's just by sheer nature and capability. So I don't know. I don't know what that motivating, driving factor is for finishing projects. So talk amongst yourselves. The other thing she talked about was sock yarn. And this has always been one topic that I've been seeking out. And because it is hard to find yarns in the appropriate weight to knit socks that retain some concept of durability and some concept of elasticity, because you want a little bit of that. You don't want a lot of drape in your sock. You want to have that hugginess feeling, if you will. And so I'll open a thread up for people who have suggestions. I have been working with Upton Yarns, her Gansey yarn, which is right here. This is a 5-ply Coopworth, which Coopworth is great. It's got long fibers for durability, but it retains a little bit of crimp and elasticity. And, you know, again, whenever we use the word the royal we, I use the word softness, it needs to be relative to my level and tolerance for not soft. So for example, this sweater I'm wearing, which is Maze How by Robin Mellinson, is knit with 100% North Ronaldsy wool, including the Kemp. And I do have a shirt on underneath it, but you can see there's quite a bit of skin to fiber exposure. And it's a little bit, I mean, I can feel it prickling my skin, but it doesn't bother me. So, you know, I wouldn't describe this as soft, but I don't need soft to make it enjoyable. Now, I would describe this as soft. So this is her 5-ply. 5-ply will indicate for good durability, and I think that this is worsted prepared and worsted spun. So worsted prepared and worsted spun, for just bump the camera. Fibers are combed, so long locks, I think I've talked about this before, all completely aligned, and then spun in alignment. So spun, everybody's straight, everybody is going to be, no twist is going to be entering the spinning web. So everybody twists, you open it, inch, twist, open it, and everybody gets worsted is like iron. And that's what the Ganseys we talked about a couple episodes ago were knitted out of, just for that reason. And they were knit at a very tight gauge. So if we think about that in accordance with socks, we kind of want the same elements. We want the same characteristics. Durability, strength. We want a little bit of elasticity to make sure that they can stay up and that they're staying on our feet. So this is the Gansey yarn from Upton. I'm knitting with a Corriedale alpaca blend from Serenity Farms, and that's what Granny Sheep uses for her socks. Here's an example of that right here. Again, Corriedale, longer fiber length, alpaca, a little bit shorter, but that blend will give you a little bit of bounce and not bounce, but you know, texture or tactile softness. I knit this on a pretty tight gauge, so that's a starting place, is to think about those characteristics that you want in the socks. I've always looked for mohair blends because mohair is kind of nature's nylon. You can also probably take a mohair thread and weave it into heels and toes. Silk is fairly durable as well, but I would probably lean more towards mohair. So anyway, those are a couple ideas to start. I don't know necessarily of sources for those, so again, let's throw that in the thread and see what we can compile for non-superwash sock yarn. All right, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the retreat that I'm hosting It is kind of a collaborative experience with One Lupin Fiber Arts and Jody Clayton, who is a dyer and a felter and runs a shop here in Bangor. I have been chatting with her about opportunities to bring fiber people together. And this is what we've come up with. It's Tidal Tours Islands of Wool. And I'm just going to give you a little insight into the first retreat that we'll be sponsoring here in 2015. And I want to make sure you get all the good information, so I'm going to open the thread that I posted it in the group. I think I'm in the wrong thing. Sorry for the slightly uncomfortable pause. Silence. Sometimes it's not a bad thing, is it? To just let the quiet. I just did it again, monkeys. Here we go. Okay. So I'm coordinating 2 fiber retreats currently. One will be the Highlands on the Fly in 2015 in October. Date yet to be determined, but still working on it. And the other is going to be with One Lupin Fiber Arts, or Tidal Tours Islands of Wool. And it says, we will focus at first on wild places with a strong connection to the land, to fiber, and to farms. We will take you all to beautiful places and provide rare opportunities with fiber and with your natural environment. We will make you fabulous food. We will build community and explore the connection between our islands of wool. We will have fun, so that with that in mind, you are invited to attend our first retreat. It will happen on the bold coast of Maine, a rare and wonderful part of the state, from the evening of July 18th through breakfast July 22nd, 2015. The retreat will include 4-night stay right on the coast of Maine. I've seen the place, the house that we've rented. The beach is right there. The bold coast is a descriptor that kind of is Washington County. You're going to be north of Bar Harbor. So you'll be a little bit out of the kind of general coastal experience, the one kind of people attribute with Acadia and Mount Desert and all that. Mount Desert. And you'll be a little bit north of that, a little bit wilder, a little bit less traveled, my kind of place. So, great food. Breakfast and dinner are included for you, full stay, and light lunch will be provided each day. Nibbles and a moderate amount of drinks. Beautiful location. We have made arrangements to stay at a captain's house in Machiasport, Maine. We will have the entire house to ourselves, complete with a beach, walking paths, and views to die for. Day trip possibilities. We hope to arrange a tour of our local and very groovy fiber mill and a farm or two. We are about an hour from Campobello Island, Canada, which is where FDR's summer camp was. A great place to visit. Bring your passport if you think this is for you. We are close to Quoddy Head, which is the easternmost point of the continental United States, and with terrific hiking trails, lots of birding, and charming coastal towns, wildlife refuges. Oh dear God. Classes and workshops we will offer, learning and sharing opportunities, potentially a local wine tasting. We will invite local fiber artists to teach, yoga. So space is limited. We have people signed up, and if you're interested, you can check the thread for more information or give Jody a call at 299-6716, area code 207. So go ahead and check that out. You can certainly contact me. I can get information to you as well. Not a problem. So I think that's going to be a blast. And we have some other ideas for the fall, which I'll fill you in on as we move forward with those plans. But right now we have the Bold Coast, Tidal Tours, and then the Highlands on the Fly. Okay. So this is not my best one, but I don't have time to re-record. The other thing that has been brewing is with New Hampshire Knits, Claire. And she and I had a phone conversation the other day about doing a swap together. So what that basically means is people in her group would swap with people in my group. And we know we have overlap, but we just thought it would be kind of fun to bring our groups together that way. Excuse me. So we're going to do a Soulful Stash swap, which will be a swap that highlights farm yarns. And I've put a link, I put a thread in the group. We are only taking 10 people because we're very timid about swap organization. So we thought we would work with 10, and then should we need to expand and grow from there, we will. But disappointing 100, although we were kind of like, would 100 people sign up for this? So perhaps we were too big for our britches. But we figured we set it at 10, and that way we figured we could at least get 10 people. So 10 people in each group. And a couple things about the swap. One is, because it's a limited number of people, we kind of need to be open to both national and international shipping. So please enter into the swap knowing about the type of investment that's going to need to be made. The farm yarns, we're all going to compile a list of farm yarns. We were going to use the word local, but we were worried that if people didn't have local yarns to them, they would feel like they couldn't participate. But it can be a farm yarn of interest to you. So for example, I might be interested in sending out 13 Mile Lamb and Wool Company yarn because I want to order some for myself, and then I'll ship them off to my partner. And I'm from Maine. So really it's about farm yarn. It's sourced at a farm, or it's from a mill where you can source the farm. The price will be about $25 a skein, and then you have to factor in your shipping. We're going to partner people, and once you're partnered, you can coordinate with them allergies, color preference, etc. So that will be done between you and your partner. And you can send little goodies if you choose to arrange that with each other. And I would prefer that you send a postcard from where you are from. So there is a little bit of like, well, I'm from Maine, and here's something interesting about where I'm from, even though I'm sending you farm yarn from Montana. I know Clara talked a little bit about this on her last episode, New Hampshire Knits, and my concept of local. And I was talking about that with Jody, who I'm coordinating this tour group with. And I know for me, again, yarn is really like wine and cheese or specialty foods that benefit from its resource and its locale. You know, there's cheese in Italy where the cows graze for so many days on this one meadow, alpine meadow, and all the milk goes into this one particular cheese, and that cheese is that cheese because of the flowers in the meadow and the grasses and the type of aromas and flavors that it denotes to the cheese. And you just can't get it from anywhere else, even when they're on their lowland grazing. And that's what fiber is to me. You know, fiber that's produced on Montana plains is different than fibers that's produced on seaweed in Maine. It's just different. It has a reconnaissance of its place. And so I really have tried to broaden that concept for myself, what I'm looking for, and that particular fiber, and what does it bring from its resource. So I appreciate wine, and I certainly appreciate cheese, and I certainly appreciate single malt whiskey for the same reasons. It comes with a locale, and that you can only get from that one space. So please don't be put off if you're living in, you know, whatever, Key West, and there's no sheep farm right there to buy yarn. We're just looking for people to be exposed to different resources. So the swap. I think that we'll all compile a list, like I said. That will be very helpful. So you can really get to see exactly what that definition looks like. You know, a mill. It might be hard to buy from Stonehenge because their fiber is an amalgamation of farms, where you could buy from Starcroft because she just mills Nash Island fleeces. That's the type of thing we're looking at. Prefer that you get something from Nash Island, where that source is very clear. So I think that's it. There may be more details in the thread. There is a little bit of a warning just because, like I said, Claire and I are feeling a bit timid about this adventure. But I was so inspired by her Great Bay Woolworks post. And there's so many of us out there who are inspired by farm yarns. I really wanted to give people a chance to interact and connect, especially during this month. Oh, we will partner people, and you have to the end of March to ship. So packages should be in hand by March 31st. Of all people who is saying this, it is ironic that it's me, because I am the worst mailer ever, but I am committed to making this happen. So I think that's everything I wanted to say about the Soulful Stash swap. Anyway, if it goes well, we will certainly do something again. I'm sure Claire is very amenable and she's very enthusiastic, and so I'm sure we can make something happen for those of you who perhaps wanted to do it but it wasn't a good time financially, or you didn't get into the first 10. So let us know how you feel about it, and we'll just evolve from here. All right, I think that's all my blah blah, if you will. Hopefully you've made it this far. I need to lean down and get a drink of water. It's not a pickle jar, Emily, but it's a ball mason jar. So I thought I would quickly go through my whips. Some of them have changed drastically and some of them have not. So the first thing I have on, I've been working on is Romy Hills Red Rock Canyon. And I'm doing this out of the Promenade base, which is a yak silk and merino base from One Lupin. This is the lichen colorway, and this is fig, which I believe that the gray, this is an over-dyed gray. So anyway, I'm almost done. I have one chart here and then another little chart, and then I'm just about close to my cast off. So that should be done hopefully soon. I think I talked about blocking it on my last issue, so we'll see. My last podcast. I've made great progress on Windswept by Emily Wessels from her book Handmade in the UK. So I have cast off the sleeves, and I'm just starting to knit down. This is Jamieson's Shetland, and this is the artichoke colorway. The Red Rock I'm knitting on a size 6 or a 4 millimeter. The Windswept I'm knitting on a 7, 4.5 millimeter. And it's going along swimmingly. So you can see the construction kind of. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this rolls. I talked about last time the sizing. I think my gauge may be a little bit off. It might be a little bit larger than 34 inches, which is perfectly fine. She said to 0 to -2 inches of positive ease. So if even it has a little bit more ease, that's not going to bother me. So, yeah. So that is Windswept. No modifications are being made on any of these. The other thing I'm working on that I just basically chatted about is I am working on my Waffle Cream Socks by Ann Hansen. And this is out of the Serenity Farm Corriedale Alpaca. I'm not sure if Granny Sheep has any of her yarn available, but she would be a perfect person to contact for the farm yarn swap, and see if she has any of the beautiful over-dyed grays that she posted in her farm yarn comment on Ravelry. Those were so gorgeous. So here it is. This is all I've got going. This is my school knitting, and I haven't had much school knitting time. I'm also working on a test knit for Upton Yarns and her Ganzi yarn. I'm knitting the Miriam Shemitz, but I did want to just show you, it's hard to see, but this yarn is just so gorgeous. Knitting it at a tight gauge, and gorgeous color. The feel is nice, you know, the hand, and I would definitely recommend this for a pair of socks. So that's coming along. I need to get a little bit, get a little fire under the burner for that one. But you can see I have a couple other pieces that are going, and all of them require charts. So the Windswept has lace on either side, which I have to look at the chart. I don't memorize lace charts very well. And the Red Rock Canyon, once I get going on the row and I know what I have to do, I'm okay, but I have to look at every row. So check the old show notes. That's really it. No spinning, no finished objects. I wanted to quickly describe Fibertrek. I had a really lovely shout out from Lisa of 90% Knitting, which I've always watched. It's kind of the staple part of the podcast diet, right? And she said some lovely things about the podcast and about the work that I'm doing. And I was thrilled to hear great feedback from such a long time participant in the fiber community, in the professional fiber community. And that's not to say that I don't appreciate everything that comes down the pike. But I wanted to just, for those of you that are just joining me, the concept of Fibertrek is two things. One is the podcast, which is right here. And the podcast was predicated on a larger project that my project partner, my creative partner, Tyler Walker, and I kind of hatched a concept for a couple of years ago. He is a videographer and a filmmaker, and I have always wanted to create a TV show about textiles and travel and place, and we're trying to do that. So on our YouTube channel, there are episodes that we've filmed, and those have been off-site, part of the larger Fibertrek project as far as bringing in footage, putting it together, and packaging it for branding and for selling. So our first full-length episode is with Starcraft Fiber Mill and Mary Jane Mucklestone. Tyler's in the process of editing our second full-length episode, which he hopes to have out in the near future. I am in the process of setting up a couple more shoots for the spring, so we have more episodes out there. So the two projects are the Fibertrek, the TV show, and Fibertrek, the podcast, to accompany that TV show, to gather support, to create connection that will fuel the interest in the TV show. So our tagline for the media project, for the bigger project, is connecting craft, community, fiber, and farms. And that's really what you can distill that down to, where we want to go with that. And I have a phone call with Tyler tonight, and there's just a lot happening with him in the planning and the business plan, which is what we're trying to coordinate, which is a lot of work as a part-time gig. Not even a part-time gig. We live 3 hours apart. He has baby. I'm in school. He works. It's just one of those things. And so we are moving slowly, but we're moving with consideration and insightfulness. So we would love to move this faster, but based on where the project is at and the amount of depth to this project, we don't want to push quality for quantity. So bear with us. If you are hankering for another full-length episode, it's coming out. But I want to just throw that out there, just to kind of start to create some clarity around what the real goal is for Fibertrek. With that, I think I'm going to say a fond farewell. This is a bit of a funny episode because I didn't really have anything. I just really wanted to get out there and give those announcements about the retreat and about the swap. And so next time I'll have a textiles in time and hopefully some finished objects. I say that like I might have finished objects. But in the meantime, since I have no awesome tagline to get out, bye.